Knight of Discs, Lord of the wide and fertile land, King of the spirits of the earth. He rules over the Seven of Wands, the Eight of Discs, and the Nine of Discs. From August 12th to September 11th, blending together both Leo and Virgo. One part Leo, two parts Virgo. So the Knight of Discs is a very interesting character. The main foundation of his character is foundation. He is seen as a masculine energy. So it's kind of the concept of father nature, right? So it's a very nurturing energy, but it's more the father than the mother. Even from women, like the women that are typically this card come off more tomboyish. Not to say that they're not feminine or any of that. They're just very, definitely the core matriarch of a family. They're definitely matriarchal. They are very step-by-step people. They see the world as it is, and it makes them very grounded. But it tends to have a certain amount of tunnel vision associated with that. It's not to say that they're closed-minded. It's just that these people might have a more difficult time seeing your opinion because their opinion seems so clear to them, and the way that they relate to the world seems so clear to them that there is no need to see it any other way because you already know how it is. And that's the way these people see things, because they see the world very clearly. And there's drawbacks to that and positives. On the positives, you're very nurturing people, like I say, and they do care very deeply. They're usually driven, Valor is one of their cards, and so they're very much driven by what they know is right. And so you get very earnest people. However, whenever these people are out of their element, Crowley even goes so far as to say, if ill-dignified, so anytime an ill-dignification is anytime that you're out of your element, you have people working against you, that would be an ill-dignification. If you're out of energy, if you're worn out. So if you're worn out, you're out of your, home or wherever you would prefer to be, anything that you feel comfortable, in a situation that makes you feel uncomfortable, that would be an ill-dignification. Or if, like I say, people are working against you, whether you know it or not, that can still ill-dignify you. But Crowley is not kind whenever he says, if ill-dignified, these people are hopelessly stupid, slavish, quite incapable of foresight, even in their own affairs, or taking intelligent interest outside of themselves. Going on to say that they interfere with and spoil everything that comes their way. Duquette is a bit kinder, noting that he keeps his nose to the grindstone, but has little interest in or respect for intellectual musings or the finer aspects of culture or civilization, and when ill aspect, he will even make ignorance a virtue and take pride in his lack of sophistication and subtlety. So he'll make it a proud moment, the thing that he is happy about, of his lack of sophistication, of, I'm not civilized, look at me. I don't need all that fancy stuff to fit me. And they make it a point of pride. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. It just needs to be recognized as a slighted view, that it is, tunnel vision, I like to say. So this character is really a farmer, and that's a big part of what they represent. And that's more of a farmer in the sense of treating the physical world as a resource. So anything that is involved in that, hunting, fishing, wildlife, raising animals, definitely farming too, any kind of agriculture, they would be right up there. That's right in their wheelhouse. But it extends farther than that. It's not just that these are the farmers, you know, then that's all they do. There's more to them than that. There's a bit of rules and structures associated with them. They very much are in the world. So they're not incredibly emotionally deep. Not to say they're emotionally cold. It's just they're not able to express or receive emotions like a water sign could. You know, they act like an earth sign because they are. So, you know, they are very tangible in how they express. So, you may have people accuse you of trying to buy their love, and you do, but they should let you. It's how we express, it's how an earth sign expresses themselves. They express themselves through tangible things. So, you know, that's what you may have. If you are a female version of this card, you may be very attractive and express yourself very physically to, and that's your nature. And so you may have been said that you manipulate through that, and especially, you know, it's the foundation. So that's the other thing. So getting into your card, it's the foundation. So the world relies on you all to be the foundation on which we build everything from. So, and that's your job. So once you have that, and it's part of your character, and so you feel this very much. Did you know that having these things in place that will set you up are very important? You know, typically things like land, maybe a solid career, whatever it is that gives you structure in the world and makes it to where you can be comfortable at this minimum maintaining level, because you can maintain like a badass. No one can compare with the amount of plotting, maintaining course you all can do. Because of that, though, you lack initiative. It's very hard to push you into something new. You need some kind of motivational driver. And so having a partner that can fuel your interest into different things and activities, and fuel that, and partner we use loosely, anyone that you interact with that can drive this out of you, would be a partner that you're working with in this instance. But definitely your love interest, drawing those things out of you. That's where you're going to find most of your inspiration, to be honest. Because this card is also considered somewhat dull, and needs help. They need help from the other symbols. Whereas the Queen of Cups is kind of the most reflective. They kind of need they're the stability. And so it just makes sense that that's kind of the way that they're hardwired, is that they need to be the stability. So they need people to need them to rely on them. It's part of how it works for them. So let's get into the modes of how this works. Okay, so the three decadents that the Knight of Discs has is the Seven of Wands, the Eight of Discs, and the Nine of Discs. So if you're born between August 12th and the 22nd, you're a Seven of Wands. August 23rd to September 1st, you're an Eight of Discs, and September 2nd to the 11th, you're a Nine of Discs. And what this really means is that that's your default mode, and you stay in this one and experience it and express it more. You're gonna all experience life in the same way, but with different amounts, we'll say. And you also have a modifier that you get by, it's your lifetime symbol. I'm sure at some point I'll make a video on that. You should go check it out if I have. But that's going to modify your personality in a great way. So this is just your archetype, and everything builds and splits off from it. But the birth date that you have kind of determines which core archetype you are, and which way that, and how frequently your state of being shifts between these three. Because these are the three key states of being that you will experience, replete over and over in a cycle throughout your life, because it's your default core states. The real core of the Knight of Discs is the 8, running from August 23rd to September 1st, which is the Sun in Virgo, and it's the start of Virgo, and Virgo being the key element in this card. Virgo is represented by the 9 in the trumps, which is traditionally the Hermit. So these people are very homebody people. They like to be at home. You'll find them at home. They sometimes make work their home, just out of convenience for them, because they're going to live there as much as they do at home anyway. So it's convenient if they can just live at work. So you'll find them working at home a lot. The 8 of Discs is prudence, and this is taking things step by step and having outlook for the future. I know a Knight of Discs that will tell me all the time, prudence dictates this. So he'll always say that to me, and it's very in keeping with this character, because that is how they look at things. You know, if this isn't going to go well in the future, then what the hell are you thinking? You know, why would you? Now, you know how this is going to play out, and they see how things are going to unfold in the world. So beyond being the foundation, once they've fulfilled that, one of the good things that they're good at for keeping around is to see how things are going to play out in the world. If you want to know what will happen if I do this and this and this in a physical world sense, you know, especially from like an engineer, because they make great engineers, what'll happen, and they can usually tell you, with you know, depending on how good they are at what they're supposed to do, they can be quite accurate. And that's built around this key concept of prudence. It's the taking things step by step and really mastering a thing before you move on to something else, and completing something in a sound and solid way. And that's a big part of the prudence card. However, sometimes there is a tendency, the drawback, and that's the problem with the Knight of Discs, right, is that there's drawbacks a little bit with all of these things that they have to struggle with. And so part of it is that the rest of us need to accept that these shortcomings as much as they do, so that we know where their struggles are, and we can be less critical of those. Because, you know, if you judge a fish on if you judge how smart a fish is by its ability to climb trees, all fish are stupid. So, you know, take it as you will. Don't judge people on them being them. But they're somewhat short-sighted. They can be very tunnel-visioned again, and this is a real complete thing, just as all things are, and that's why this works and it helps. So they've got their tunnel vision going, and they get so focused on a small thing that they waste the big. And this comes up a lot in different ways. They'll focus on one little thing, and it'll spoil the rest. And letting go of that is somewhat important, or it can be, for their growth and development. So this is one of their main core states of being, and especially if you're born in the time period that this card is dominant, then that's going to be your life mode. You're going to be here more often than not, and most of the time with the other ones you are too. This is the core concept of who you are. typically the next state you flow into is the Seven of Wands. So typically that's the modifying element that moves your wheel, as it were. So it runs from August 12th through the 22nd, and it is Mars in Leo. So the 7 is an uncomfortable number because all of them are. It's the element being really happy, and then all of a sudden it's not. And so the fire element is not happy, but at least it's got Mars there, and that's the saving grace, is that there's enough energy in Mars to help push the remaining energy out of Leo. And what this gives you is smoldering energy. Okay, so this isn't, sometimes it explodes a bit. And that's not to say that sometimes it can't be a bit volatile. Because it can, because it's fire just like every other fire is. But this is not that kind of energy, and it's why they're not driven, why they're driven the way they are, and why it's a slow running steam engine is because this is the slow burning fuel that provides that. It's a sense of doing what is right, and the energy to back those things that they believe in. And so, every so often, or at every crossroads, it's their second state of being. It's their check. Do I believe in this? And there's several different ways in which they will check to see whether or not they believe in a thing before they progress. And so they'll be in this state until they've decided whether or not a thing is worth it. So they'll move out of that 8 of Discs space, and they'll move into the 7 of Wands space until they've decided whether or not this is worth their energy and is worth a thing that they believe in. And usually it comes down to something very solid and black and white like that with these people, because they're dealing with earthly things, right? It's not so emotionally driven, it's not logically driven, it's reaction to the world, if more than anything else. And so it's very procedurally dominated and generated. Another key aspect of this energy is that they require, especially if you're born under this date, you require durability out of things in the world, because the Knight of Discs requires quality. Okay, you all need quality shit. If the better stuff that you have physically, the better off you are as a person. You know it. And you've never met the tool you can't break, especially if you've are born in this time period. And so durability is of paramount to you. So keep that in mind whenever you're making choices, is that the thing that holds up is the thing you need. Yeah, make sure it's structurally sound. One issue, though, with this 7 of Wands energy is a conflict of two sides. So the main art behind the card is this lattice of 3 wands intersecting, which is the 6 of Wands. And then there's one in between, you know, and that's really symbolic of the two sides, because usually there's two sides to it, 3 and 3, that you've got to weigh. And a lot of times that's people, but it can be, most of the time it's people. It can be ideas and situations, that these two things just don't really quite mesh up, and you're trying to. And that is really where the do I believe in this comes into play. And you really need, and that'll give you some really hard time. That'll be the hang up that keeps you here, is that half of me says this thing and half of me says this other thing here. And sometimes there is no good option, and you just are better off picking one. Pick the consequences that are easier for you to deal with. Whichever side the fallout is easier, just take that one, because it's a shitty option. There is no win here. You can't. And you just need to move on and get your cycle moving. Because the next card in your hand is the 9. It's the next deacon that you all have, and which runs from September 2nd to September 11th. And it is Venus and Virgo, which is physical world gain. So usually what happens is that once you decide that something is worth your effort, it pays off. And usually not much after that. It's the big thing is that is this the thing I want in my life? And once you become to grips with that, then it pays off. And you're like, oh, yeah, of course I did. I always knew. Because of course you did. You always did. But one of the problems with this card, this is where the physical world gain is actually where the most trouble comes from out of the card, out of your all's whole personality kit. Because it is material world gain. Your focus on the physical world has a tendency to lead to two things: theft and hoarding, which leads to theft. So it tends to lead to theft. Chances are, if you're in this category, you've either been a thief or had a bunch of shit stolen from you. Or you're very generous. Like you should be, because you are a foundational key element in the lives of everyone around you. Everyone around you depends on you to be a foundational cog in everything they do. They rely on you as a backbone and a support. And that's your job. You have to provide that so that the world can continue to operate. Because without its foundation, it falls to shit. And that's on y'all. That's on you. So do your job, right? That's not to say that you need to give your all to people that aren't worth it, because that's going to be immediately what you all say. You look at the world very down to earth, and you're right, and you see when people are just going to throw away what you give them. But that's not to say that you don't do it anyway. And that you don't attempt, and that you don't keep trying. Definitely don't go out of your means. But you can't stop either, because if you stop, who is there to provide that? That's the problem, is that there is no one else. Because this is what you all do. You're the foundational cogs. And so if all of our foundational cogs give out, we don't have control over the world, and we can't move things as we need to. And so we need you all to be in your key element, because having that foresight that you gain when you're liberated of how to move and manifest in this plane is something the rest of us don't have a handle on and can't do at the mastery that you all command. So rely on the rest of us to do our jobs, and do yours for us as well, and we'll make it work. So, the shortcomings of this card are very much overcome by an understanding of your viewpoint being very earth, and just backing off of how smart you are, and how much you feel, and how connected you are. And to just say, okay, really I master and own the earth. And I see the way shit's going. I have this ability to see the way the world works. I have this knowledge of the earth, the body, and a plodding determination to get shit done. And we really need to bring that out. If people are telling you that you're being a bit cold and harsh, you probably are. So it's okay to express, but make sure that you understand that what they're telling you your shortcomings are there, and that's the part of the trade-off of everything else that you provide. So while you may not feel compensated all the time, try to remember that your compensation is docked because of all the bullshit that comes with you. And to say that in the most loving way, it's that we're never going to be able to pay you back. like you think we owe you, because you're right. Your quality of work is outstanding. And so we can't pay you like it is, but remember that you're somewhat of an asshole, and so dock yourself a bit on what you expect in return, and I'm sure that you'll see that it's fair trade. So I hope that that helps. If you are, in love with one of these people, or you very care deeply, or trying to work with these people, acknowledge that their mastery over the physical world is probably greater than your own. And try to help them with the rest, right? Because they need it sometimes. Of course, I love you all very deeply into my heart, and you know, this is one of the best cards in the deck, in my opinion. So, thank you for watching, and I hope that this helps and enjoy your day. Take care now.